Here in the Northern Rockies, dark winter months are outlasted in basements, dens, and nooks where kindred souls gather together to share intel, swap fly patterns, and relive the memories from seasons past. This gathering spot, known locally as the February Room, is the inspiration for this podcast. No matter the season, the door is always open to those with a fly fishing story to tell. Brought to you by CD Fishing USA, the North American distributor for composite development fly rods and accessories. 40 years of Kiwi ingenuity and graphite technology, now available at cd-fishing.us or your local CD USA dealer. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And remember to go fishing. Here's your host, the Carnops, and this is the February Room.
If you're listening to this podcast, it's because you've been bitten by the bug, the fly fishing bug. And once you've been hooked, you want to know everything about the world of fly fishing. Today, you are in luck because my next guest is a fly fishing guide, co-founder of the Guide Relief Program, and the marketing and communications director at Montana Freshwater Partners, as well as an ambassador for a truckload of fly fishing companies. Welcome to the podcast, Kynslee Scott.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Well, and like we were talking about earlier, you just embrace so much about the fly fishing community. And I know that we have a lot to talk about today. But before we get into all of these great organizations and your steward to the waters that we all love, I would love to hear a fly fishing story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought on this for a while. The first story I would love to start with is really kind of what inspired me, or I guess what ignited the love for fishing. I was 9 and my folks and my family were on the Big Island of Hawaii. We were fortunate enough to be able to go there often. And my dad wanted to take the family out and go deep sea fishing for the first time. You know, us being from Montana, we had never experienced anything like that. So he actually had a friend that was a captain. So he took us out on the boat. And, not only did I at 9 catch, tuna and have this amazing experience, my dad was fortunate enough to hook and land a 539.5 pound Pacific blue marlin. And I just remember my dad tells the story much better, but me at 9, I'm on the upper deck, for safety, and he's an hour and a half into this epic battle. And, we almost have this marlin in, and the captain's freaking out, the whole boat, it was just absolute chaos. And me at 9, I'm up on the upper platform, and I'll never forget, my dad turned around and I gave him 2 thumbs up. And just after that, he landed the fish, and it was like, one of the most profound moments we experienced as a family. And my dad now, being in his 70s, it was such a prolific thing to witness, and such a beautiful fish. And by no means did we necessarily want to take its life, but the captain had other plans. But in order to honor and commemorate such a special experience, my dad, now in his 70s, has a huge blue marlin tattoo on his forearm. So,
wow.
Yeah, so that was kind of the
beginning of everything in the passion and of fly fishing. Well, I guess was that fly fishing?
No, that was on gear.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but really just kind of, I think that's really what sparked my, love of the outdoors, my love of fishing especially, just to see such a beautiful creature and to experience that with my family. So, yeah, it was very profound.
Do you ever feel that, like, with holidays coming up, especially as somebody, you said that your dad had the blue marlin tattoo on his, but like when gifts come up, you're like, oh, if you see a blue marlin at a store, you're like, I'm going to give this as a gift. Cause I love fly fishing. So now I have like hats, I get a toy fish, don't you find gifts tend to be like, geared towards the things that you love? So is that something that you're like, oh, I'm gonna get my dad a blue marlin set of deck cards to play with?
Oh, absolutely. And my dad's thing, like even in the picture, I sent it to you to, use in the podcast. And even in the photo, you'll see my dad, his signature for the last, I would say 50 some years has been Hawaiian shirts. He always wears Hawaiian shirts. He has no other shirts besides Hawaiian shirts. So anytime my family and I can find a blue marlin Hawaiian shirt, I think he has like 60 of them. He doesn't get rid of any either, so.
Oh, that is classic. And now, but now, like, what used to be kind of a joke like 10 years ago is now, like, those Hawaiian shirts have come back, and it's like the cool thing to be wearing. That's what I think. Everyone's probably listening to this podcast like, I don't wear Hawaiian shirts. I'm like, I've seen some of those. Hawaiian shirts.
Whatever tickles your fancy.
Yeah. But Kynslee, your home waters, you were born and raised here in Montana, correct?
Yes, I'm actually 6th generation on my mom's side, Montanan.
What? Are you, like, all in the Madison area?
So I'm actually from Helena. So I grew up on, the Missouri and that whole area of the world. And actually, just a super quick tidbit on my family. On my mom's side, Major Culbertson was the founding member of Fort Benton, Montana, which was the uppermost reaches of the steamboat travel on the Missouri. So he was the one that put a flag in the ground and said, this is Fort Benton, Montana.
Oh my gosh. I love Fort Benton. I was helping out with a PBS show, and it was about a girl who makes rocks in Fort Benton. Not very interesting, cool. Obviously. But what was interesting was Fort Benton, because very historical. You have the fort, like when we say Fort Benton, there's an actual fort there. And isn't there, like, I was told that Fort Benton is the first city in Montana, but then Stevensville's like, no, that's us, and they're both like, no, it's me, and they're both like, you're wrong. Isn't that like the biggest argument within the state?
Yes, it was. And then Bannock also too comes in, but that was technically like the first territorial capital. That I'm not. I'll let them duke it out.
Yeah. Oh, I have to say, I'm so jealous that you're like the 6th generation, because so many times, my family ended up kind of stopping in the Midwest and a little bit of the East Coast. I'm like, why didn't you guys keep moving west? Like, there's some mountains over there. And so I think it's just, and especially probably with Yellowstone, I think everyone's probably like, why didn't my parents like make the travel? Obviously, we're a little sissies on my maiden family, but
you're here now. That's all that matters. You're here now.
That is all that matters. And now that we are here, I would love to hear, how did you get into being a fly fishing guide? When did that bug hit you?
Oh boy. I don't know if it was necessarily like a bug, but I do remember a point in which I had this light bulb go off that was like, wow, you can actually do this for like a living. But I would say, the guiding part of things, I moved over to Missoula from Helena in 2008 to go to college at the university, and I was studying physical geography and resource conservation. So, I was outside all the time, a lot of field classes, things like that. And in the summer actually before I started going to college and attending the university, I was looking for jobs to try to find something seasonally, and I got hired on with a kind of dude ranch here based out of Missoula, which I'll leave nameless. It wasn't the best experience, but that's a whole other story. But
we all have jobs like that. If you don't have a bad job, then you didn't really get out there too.
You didn't do it right.
Right.
No, yeah. And so I was hired on by them to be an outdoor guide. And at the time, the way that they had the company structured, you'd go from like doing a ATV ride to either rafting or fishing, and regardless whether or not you really knew how to take people fishing, or it was kind of more selling like the whole Montana, or the idea of Montana and the experience. So I was 18, 2008, and I did that for, I think a season and a half, if not 2 full seasons, to try to pay for college. And then it wasn't until, I believe it was 2010, when I walked into a up-and-coming fly shop, and at the time was not open yet, and 2010 I was 20, and I met John Herzer and Terry Broglin, owners and outfitters of Blackfoot River Outfitters. And it wasn't until, the best, seriously. Yeah. And it wasn't really until like they took me under their wing that I had the realization of, oh my gosh, you can actually do this for a living. So not only was I going to college, but I was working for Blackfoot and, really going through the process of learning, not only the guiding aspect of things, because it's one thing to be able to fish, and then it's another thing to be able to guide, and then it's another thing to be able to guide and row a boat and do it safely. Yes. And so, their influence, their expertise, their direction, their mentorship, along with a slew of other guides at the time, really helped me become and, start my path to what I am today. So yeah, I guess it's kind of the evolution of me becoming a guide. By no means when I was in college or even teaching for Rick Ratz in the geography department did I think I was going to be a guide. I was actually on track to get my PhD in physical geography. Wow. And which I still possibly might do, maybe in conservation. We'll see what the future holds. But I loved it. I love being outside, and I love being able to wrap conservation and ecology and all of the things that I love, but also call my office the rower seat.
I mean, I also feel though, like with having like your background in geography, that you have more of a really passion when it comes to the river and the land around you. Like that makes you a great guide to be historically accurate when you're kind of like talking about like where people are fishing, and you can like really look at your surroundings and be like based on, mountains and areas and rivers and channels, like, and also on that note, I mean, you're not only just a fishing guide, because actually, before we even go into the organizations, are you still because you also steelhead guide, or are you taking a break from that?
Taking a break. I don't want to say I'm retired just because it's a very sore subject, but as many listeners may know, steelhead, whether they're summer or winter run fish, they've had a really hard go in the last decade. The overall trajectory is down, and so I'd say I'm retired until the populations, when and if, which I hope they do, come back to a healthy level that I would feel ethically okay with guiding and utilizing that resource again. So yes, I have and did in Washington State, but at the moment I'm based here in Montana, and yes, I do a lot more than just guiding these days.
Yeah, but I would love to, let's kind of maybe talk about the Montana Freshwater Partners with your work with them. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So Montana Freshwater Partners, love the team. So it's super, super cool organization based out of Livingston, and it's actually a team of all female scientists and specialists. Wow. And I know, it's awesome.
Was that purposely, let's make this a whole women, or did it just like turn out like that was just the hand that was given of the best crew were all women?
Yeah, I think it was just, serendipitous that it happened to be all women, and each part of the team, each cog in the wheel is their own specialist and scientifically specialized. So it's a outstanding rock star team. So essentially what Montana Freshwater Partners, I'm the marketing and communications director for the organization, and what the team does is we're multifaceted, but we were the first organization in Montana. We just celebrated 10 years, so woohoo. And we were the first organization in Montana to essentially formulate and implement what we call channel migration easements and in-lieu fee programs. So channel migration easements, it's an agreement that works with private landowners to allow the water systems, water resources, to essentially go about things naturally. So we're trying to be the least impactful on water systems. So through federal assistance, we go in and we're able to essentially offset any loss that a private landowner may occur, say like, during runoff, during flooding. We allow the river to go and say retake a channel that it hasn't taken in 100 years, and we're able to monetarily offset that with landowners and working with them. So that's kind of one thing,
Wow.
the long and the short of it. And then in lieu fee program is another program that we offer, and I'm not going to go too much into it, but it's another monetary assistance. So essentially, to wrap Montana Freshwater Partners up, we specialize in restoring and enhancing wetland loss, and we essentially go in and try to offset any wetland loss due to development. So we're all about restoring and enhancing Montana's water resources.
And that's across all of Montana, not like a specific region in Montana?
Across Montana. Yep, we have projects, or we have and have had projects from every corner and every, facet in Montana.
What was one of the biggest projects for you personally that you saw, that you worked on, that you're like, wow, this was like a big success?
Oh boy. Well, two. There's two right here in our backyard. We worked and did restoration work up Miller Creek in the south end of Missoula. And then we were also a consulting factor, and that's another thing that we also do, Montana Freshwater Partners, is technical consulting. So we were a technical consultant on the Rattlesnake Dam removal. So that was super cool. So yeah, two right in our backyard. And then countless others. Like right now, one of our ongoing projects is the Bozeman Indolent Wetland, and that's through this in partnership with the Sacagawea Audubon Society in Bozeman. And so in kind of the heart of Bozeman, there is going to be a massive effort, collaborative effort, to restore a wetland area that's been set aside. And so that's a super cool project, and definitely more to come on that.
Well, I think it's like such an important project overall in Montana, because we are seeing a huge uptick in people wanting to move here. And with that is, more recreation, more development, and we really need to be conscious about the wetlands and just the our water system around us. And it's really hard. You always kind of think about whose job is that? Like and it's really great that there's a group that came together and was like, hey, let's be consultants. Like, let's go out there and be the voice for these waters, because if we don't say it, who else is going to, fill that space? I always think about that. I'm like, if we aren't creating these organizations, then who else is going to come up there and start saying like, hey, we got to make sure that development isn't going to be taking over this area, because they all interlocked with each other. So I think that's just such a great, I still don't even know how you do all of this on top of your guiding. and then also, the guide relief program, can you give a little bit more information about that? Because I think that I've never heard of that before until actually COVID really hit. I was like, oh, that was a great resource for a lot of people.
Yeah, so that's actually that's when we first started laying our foundation. We got our start, our conception during COVID. So I am co-founder and director of outreach and guide services for the Guide Relief Program. And so back, at the beginning of the pandemic, we'll call it February, March, when the economy was shutting down. And for us as independent contractors, that was the uh-oh button. That was a very scary time for everyone, and especially independent contractors, because us as guides in Montana, we waive our rights to, employment benefits, such as unemployment benefits. And so at the time, it was a very uncertain moment for guides in Montana. So my co-founder, Molly Simpkins, and I kind of put our heads together and started a resource center for guides to come and to kind of navigate the red tape of governmental assistance. So we were able to, work with Senator Tester's office, Daines' office, and kind of make it easier to understand all of the benefits that were available for guides. And so that's kind of where we started from. And we pivoted when the federal government allowed the assistance to be extended to independent contractors, 1099s, right? So there's the financial burden relieved off of us as an industry. So from there, we kind of pivoted and understood that there's still a lot of gaps and a lot of things missing in terms of guides in Montana and benefits. So now we've evolved and we're still evolving, and it's just been such an amazing process. We've worked with so many amazing people, and we have, our base is growing every day. So now the Guide Relief Program is kind of we'll call it a two-armed organization. So we're a 501c3, so tax-deductible donations, and we have the Guide Relief Fund. So really going back to our roots, the Guide Relief Fund, we're raising money to essentially put into a piggy bank in the sky so that we are then allowed to and have the ability to allocate funds in the form of grants to guides during times of need and crisis, whether it's personal or professional. So your house burns down, cancer, you just need some help. So we're building that up as we speak to be able to provide financial relief. Well, also with the Guide Relief Program on that side, we now are able to provide free mental health services with our partners at BetterHelp to any and all guides. And so when we were first kind of conceptualizing all of this, it was specifically to Montana, but now we've been working with such amazing folks that we are moving to become nationally available. So our partners at BetterHelp were really pivotal in making that happen for us to be able to provide free financial mental health and well-being services 24/7, right? Virtual.
Wow.
It's awesome. So yeah, that was huge.
Well, I just can't believe, kind of like going back to what I had said is that like there are needs for like development and people standing up for it, but there's also a need for someone to represent these guides, because just like how we were just talking about the steelhead, you're not going to take people fishing out there. That is also loss of income for you. Steelhead is, and I think having this opportunity to be like, hey, let's respect the fish, but you don't need to fish for money. Like there's other organizations that will help you to get through this slump, and let's get our fisheries back to normal. Let's hopefully get those numbers up. And also mental health for fly fishing guides. I'm like giggling, but I think it is necessary. You can guides just because I'm married to one, I feel like I can speak out to it, but it's a grind, sometimes when you're on the river 15 days in a row, and you come home and you're just like, hey, how did it go out there? And day 15, I think you give a lot of patience to your clients so that when you come home, your kind of patience is like wiped out, and to have some mental health where people are able to talk to you and like maybe reestablish that neutral zone. Because, I think that's what happens. You leave it all in the river. So when you come home, you're depleted.
Absolutely. And for people to have access to it 24/7 and to no cost, to them, really helps. And also, a confidence and a professional resource to help you navigate things is, more than just even talking to your buddies, your spouse, whatever, and kind of just unplugging for the day. It's a very constructive way to not only talk with someone that's professionally trained to help you, to move forward and to process things. But to, something that's not really talked about in the fly fishing industry is substance abuse. And so to have the tools and resources to help, like you said, not only pull yourself, maybe it's, a 25-day stint, you just need someone to vent to, but really long-term health of guides. That's what our mission is based off of. Our mission statement is supporting guides on and off the water. So our fundamental motivation at the Guide Relief Program is to help guides professionally and personally be the best that they can be and succeed in an industry and do it well.
I absolutely love it. I mean, that is been needed for a long time. And I know that there's a lot of guides. It's funny. Someone even asked me one time, like, well, when are you going to run out of guests? I was like, well, have you driven in Montana in the summertime and you see the guide boat drive by with number 25,000, there's a lot of fishing guides out here. And
oh, yes.
As much as I know they all do it because they love the waters, just like in any job, it does get taxing, and it's great that there's an outlet for guides to support each other, and also there's an organization, you're just not an independent contractor, you're a group of independent contractors doing things together. I absolutely love it. Well, and we were also going to talk about, too, Kynslee, because we're just going down the list because you just got so many things. Well, and I was
going to say, before we jump off the Guide Relief Program, not that this is a, shameless plug by any means. So the other facet of the Guide Relief Program is the Outdoor Guide Association, so our 501c6 side of things. So guides across the nation can join us and become a member and get access to benefits that they had historically never had access to. Aside from super affordable and comprehensive guide liability insurance, we have everything down to pet care, discount vision and dental, free telehealth. Oh yes, our whole list of benefits for $50, an annual membership will get you access to everything on the backside. So we're essentially trying to supplement and add to guides' lives and fill in the gaps. So you have access to life insurance, accident and disability insurance, because we know, you might blow your back out or your rotator cuff goes or what have you. So for $50, our membership gets you access to all of it and gets you into our network. So yeah, I'll give you all the info on that for listeners and guides.
I need this information. I'm Justin, we've been doing the whole do we pay for dental insurance? So we've just been basically out of pocket because I've done the estimates, but now I'm well, I don't know if this feels like we're saving any money. Just because everything X-rays. That is incredible. I need this information, and I actually am 100% positive that every guide has avoided doing dental, vision, and so this is great news. Life insurance, listen to me. I'm every time I'm Justin, don't go. Be safe on the river. I need you to come back. Because there's, and life is getting expensive. Montana's expensive. I mean, these are things that we look at our accounts and we try and think of where can we skim, at the end of the month. And it tends to be skimming the things that we can't tangibly touch, which is life insurance. 401ks, you know what I'm saying? If I'm hey, what we need to pay for this, and this, what can we skim at the end of the month? And it tends to be those things that are not tangible at the moment, but will you most likely need in the future. So absolutely. I think that is so wonderful. And like I said, I'm going to have Justin sign up for this as soon as we get off this podcast.
Yes,
I'm
please do. Yeah, we're just really trying to, again, enhance guides' lives and make careers feasible in the industry. So we're just trying to add to all of the great things that already exist in the fly fishing industry and just, like I said, kind of fill in the gaps and give a little insurance and peace of mind on and off the water. So
Man, I love it, Kynslee. I don't even know. I mean, like I said, I think there's just opportunities for people, especially you, who just notice that these are things that are going on around you. You understand your surroundings really well. And so I think guides talk about this a lot, but there's no action. Right. So I appreciate you taking the time to meet the senators, talk to, John Tester, Danes, like, let's get things rolling. Let's create this organization because there's so many of us. I mean, especially in Missoula, like guide boats every morning. You just need to go to like one of the grocery store at 6 a.m. You'll see all 20 boats.
Absolutely. And, us going national, thinking outside of Montana, it is a huge industry across the United States. So it's good.
It's a livelihood for so many people, but it's also could be a liability. And I don't think people really see that. So having something, the guide program, I think that takes the edge off for a lot of guides.
Well, we sure hope so.
No, trust me, just talking to you, I'm like, this is making me feel a bit better today. It's a good Tuesday. But so, and now we were also going to talk about the Montana Headwaters, as we were talking about how you've gone to Danes and Tester, and we also have the Montana Headwaters Legacy Act that you are working on. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So Montanans for Healthy Rivers, I've been involved with them since kind of the conception in 2010. Wonderful organization, people behind it. It's really a coalition of Montanans that have come together, and now our focus is on 2 grassroots legislations for Montana. One has been introduced by Senator Tester, and that is the Montana Headwaters Legacy Act that could potentially protect and conserve 385 river miles under the federal wild and scenic designation in Montana. And that's mostly talking about waterways and watersheds east of the Continental Divide. And the other piece of legislation that I hope, fingers crossed, would get introduced into legislation as well is the Crown of the Continent proposal, which on the west side of the divide, our literal backyard, Rock Creek out of Missoula is potentially protected underneath it. Montour Creek, the North Fork of the Blackfoot, all of these huge sections in, very, very pristine ecosystems. 200 river miles under the Crown of the Continent proposal could also be protected. So in total, we're talking 585 river miles in Montana, which would be the largest wild and scenic designation Montana has seen in over 50 years. So, working with Montanans for Healthy Rivers, we are really trying to get this passed. And so I actually just recently was brought on with them in a more formal role. And prior to that, I had created and developed a podcast, which is the River Ramble podcast and Guides Edition. So I interviewed guides and outfitters from across the state in each proposed area, or many of the proposed areas, and essentially just chatted with them about why this legislation and protection would be monumental for these areas. And we're talking like the Madison. We're talking these hallmark rivers across Montana could receive, we're talking, unprecedented protection. So,
and Kynslee, when you say protection, what does that exactly mean?
Yeah. So federally, the Wild and Scenic Act would protect these places from new and harmful developments. For example, the Smith River, even though the protection on the Smith River, the Tenderfoot, which is one of its vital tributaries, these areas could be protected even in segments, but essentially what it would do is think of it as a snapshot, right? So as pristine and beautiful as an area could be, the wild and scenic protection would ensure that for future generations. So for example, on the Smith, even though the area that's being proposed to be mined in the headwaters is not up for federal protection, downstream would be. So we're looking at whole, it's not just segments of rivers or creeks. we're looking at, even if we can get protection in parts, it's still going to be greater and preserve that ecosystem for future generations.
That makes sense. I just, like when you say protection, I'm always kind of like curious, what exactly does that mean? Mm-hmm. And thank you for clarifying that. When you were doing all of these things, what drives you to do this? Like, why add more to your plate?
Why have one job when you can have four?
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious about this.
No, I mean, the conservation side of things, it's funny. I always tell my mom, I'm like, look, I'm actually using my degrees, which is just like, slapstick humor. But really, I think that what drives me, and I guess I do owe a lot of it to my folks. They are the ones that instilled conservation and, using a resource in a sustainable fashion. And my parents always taught me, if ever you use something in the natural world, leave it better than you found it. So I guess that's just something that's been instilled within me for my life. And, as I've had the ability to grow my career in the fly fishing industry as a guide, and I've been super fortunate to have had, such a great professional career as I have. I always feel like there's something more we can do to better the greater good. And especially, utilizing a fragile resource as I do as a guide day in and day out, I can absolutely give back to the resource. And I don't know, there's always just that bone in me that's like, you can do better. There's more we can do.
I mean, you are doing it all and then some more. And I applaud you. And the fact that it takes, for what you are doing, to stand up and like be the voice of it all, from guides to water, I just applaud you. I just think it's just, it's hard to take that leap, because then you also put yourself out there like, okay, I'm going to be the voice. I'm going to be informative and lay the facts. Now, if people are wanting to support, especially like the Headwaters Legacy Act, I think I saw, is it on Instagram? What can we do as people who are not in the forefront? Like, how can we support our community and also the places that are rivers that we love?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you want to learn more, again, not another shameless plug, but, tuning into the podcast, you can learn more about these places, propose protection underneath each, and, get firsthand knowledge of these places. All of the guides and outfitters that I chatted with are immensely knowledgeable in these areas, have beautiful stories to share, and it really just helps connect you with a place. Like, it's hard for people to care about something if they don't have, a perspective on it, right? Or like a personal experience there. So, you're able to learn more about these places through the eyes of guides and outfitters. So that's, one way you can learn more. You can also visit healthyriversmt.org. And there it has, through Montanans for Healthy Rivers, the entire lineup in the Montana Headwaters Legacy Act. So the the pristine Greater Yellowstone ecosystem, again, east of the divide, all of the waterways that would be protected underneath that, and then the Crown of the Continent proposal, again, west of the divide and, our backyard, and all of the waterways that would be protected there. So you can learn a lot more on the website. And then, yes, please, if you love beautiful outdoor places, you love Montana and you want to protect it in some of the most monumental legislation we have ever seen, please add your endorsement on the website, healthyriversmt.org. You can add your endorsement, so add your support, and let's try to get this thing passed. The Montana Headwaters Legacy Act is in the balance in legislation, so the more support we can get, the better.
Is there a deadline? Is there a deadline for that?
So we just had a meeting about this today, got a little update from Tester's office. So right now, kind of where we are at Montanans for Healthy Rivers, we're really trying to not only gain more of that advocacy support, whether that's through endorsements, through, financial contributions, just anything anyone can give to help get this passed, fantastic. So from the advocacy side, now we're really trying to call upon Senator Daines and his office, as well as Representative Rosendale, for both offices and cabinets to give their endorsements on this, to just again help push it through legislation. So it's kind of where we are right now. There is no deadline, but if you love Montana, we need your help.
Well, sooner rather than later, because other bills will be starting to be bills will be starting to be pushed to get some other areas developed, and or mines or whatever is coming up. Like those are going through. But if we had that bill passed, there'd be no reason for anyone to create anything. You know what I'm saying? Like no one would go like, hey, I want to mine the Smith. Like let me go put my form in. So if we just do it now, we can just stop all of that all at once by protecting how many miles? 355 miles?
385. Yes.
Jeez, I know. It's beautiful, and I agree. Let's just get it done. I will be blasting for that to happen, and anyone who I'll sit at dinner, I'll just be like, "Hey, let's grab our phones." It doesn't take. That's the thing. It doesn't take too much though to do something like that. It takes like 5 minutes.
It's true, and it makes it. And every little bit counts, right? It's a collective, collaborative effort. This isn't going to happen just from one person overnight. This is all of us coming together. And it's beautiful. 8 out of 10 Montanans support the Montana Headwaters Legacy Act. I mean, how awesome is that? So we need...
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yes, we need everyone.
Well, and it's interesting because it takes those moments when you're in Montana and like you'll be, whether it's like hiking or the top of the mountain or you're on a boat and it's just really quiet. You really, I love like looking around, and I'll tell Justin this. I just think Montana is such a beautiful state. And we are so fortunate. Yeah, and I never want to be someone who says you can't come here, because I think that we all live in the United States of America. I'm not even originally from here, but I think it's about respect, and what better way of respecting the place that we love than protecting the waters. All three, and not even all of it. We're just asking for 385. Miles, which is a lot, but there's could be even a whole lot more of waters that are around us that we could be protecting. So I appreciate that, and I would love to hear, Kynslee, just one more fishing story before we say our goodbyes.
Yeah, fishing story. I know. Let me circle back around here.
I know.
I had 2 in mind, and I'll like kind of mash them both together. They both are to do with steelhead, or have to do with steelhead.
Love it.
The first one, I'm trying to think chronologically here. So the first one would be my 29th birthday. So it would have been February 26, 2019. We always take a fun trip in the wintertime around my birthday. And when I say we, my partner and I, who's actually now my fiance, which will be the second story. But
congratulations, Kynslee!
Thank you.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. He's pretty fantastic. So.
Oh gosh, he's got to be. You're like the queen. You're so amazing. He's got to be just as equally amazing.
He's pretty awesome. I am jealous, though. He has more nicknames than I could even dream of having, and they're all really good.
Man,
really good.
I haven't locked down a nickname. I feel like I'm sometimes George Costanza. If you're watching Seinfeld, I'm like, you can call me T-Bone, and everyone's like, yeah, you're not going to get a nickname. I'm like, dang it.
I have a few, but they're not, they're nothing I would essentially put on a business card. But the first story that comes to mind is, so kind of the steelhead side of me. So when I first came over to Missoula, I think I was introduced to spey casting, big rods on the Clearwater in Idaho, I think when I was like 20 or 21, and I was obsessed with it. So I learned all about spey casting. I would practice even in the dead of winter, at Frenchtown if it was not iced over, and in the yard, and I was just obsessed with it. So anyways, And in my journey of learning more about it, the Skagit River in Washington is like the holy mecca of spey casting in the Pacific Northwest. That's where Skagit heads were developed with a team of, the OG of the OGs in spey casting. And so I'd read about the Skagit River, and I had looked at it on a map. I had seen, pictures, I'd watched videos, and I was enamored with this place. But at the time that I was learning all about it and the history and the holy waters, it was closed to fishing because the steelhead, the winter steelhead returns were so low, and it was actually ESA listed, those fish were, and I guess still are. So fast forward though, again to my 29th birthday, that was the first and only opportunity that I've had the opportunity to go and experience that river, those fish genetics, and to fish it. And lo and behold, on my birthday, I was able to connect with one of those wild unicorns, those wild fish, and I was able to land damn near a 20-pound wild fish. And I just, even still thinking back to holding such a special creature in my hands, it still just like gives me the goosebumps. And of course, as soon as I released the fish, I just started crying my eyes out. It was just, it was just.
How was the fight?
Oh, incredible. And it was just like kind of this culmination of everything. It was just such a monumental point in my life that I was like, oh my God, I'm here, it's happening. This is happening.
Like that point, that moment, that fly, like that fish was there at the right, you just always wonder, like that moment came at the right time,
I know.
For all the elements to connect too,
Exactly.
Not just the right time, the elements, yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of the first part of the story. And then the second one, going back to the man with more nicknames than I could ever possibly imagine having. So this was then, let's see, well, I guess this past February, so almost a year ago to the day, damn near, on my birthday, again, we were on the Hoh River, and we were swinging, and of course, Rick picks my pocket, because that's always how he fishes, which means I'm swinging in front of him, right, and I come through the run, and I'm swinging, and I didn't even have a tick, not even a bump, nary a whiff of a fish, or bottom for that matter. And Ricky comes through, and I think it was like on his second cast, and he picks my pocket, meaning he hooks a fish literally damn near right at my hip. And I'm like, of course. Well, so the deal was, and this was a beautiful wild Hoh fish, I think it was like 8 pounds, just not a scale out of place. And that's the fish, and that's the run that then we named in the engagement rocks, because that's the fish that we made the deal on. Whoever hooked a fish first was proposing, because we've been together, I think we're 6.5 years in. So that's the other super special fish, right? Is the fish that led to, I guess that continued our future together.
I love it. And also on that note, are you getting a bunch of steelhead like playing cards for anniversaries? Because whenever you do like those big monumental moments, you're just like, it will now be solidified that you guys will be the steelhead couple.
Oh
gosh,
oh seriously, yes. Present wise, that's actually something I haven't thought about. But you know what? Now that you mention it, that's like the perfect. We have like forever gifts now lined out, for here on out. Yeah.
And I just can't thank you, Kynslee. I mean, you amaze me. You inspire me. I'm going to get off this podcast.
Well, thank you.
First off, have Justin to sign up for the guide relief program.
Yes.
Best way though for people, because there's like, we have listed so many programs, and also what's the best, let's get some names out. Who can they be following, and how can they keep informed?
Yeah, I would love that. So yes, so any guides, this goes to Montana and across the nation, any guides that would like to become part of the Guide Relief Program and the Outdoor Guide Association, please visit our website, which is guidereliefprogram.org, and you can learn more about our services, what you would get as a member And two, if any guides across the nation, whether you're part of our organization as a member or not, if you need access to mental health, we would never turn anyone down. So if you need free access to mental health, please let us know. We're happy to help out. And Guide Relief Program on Instagram, Facebook, Montana Freshwater Partners, our important work that we're doing here in Montana. We just went through a rebranding last year in addition to celebrating our 10 years. And you can find more about our programs and the work that we do across Montana at freshwaterpartners.org. And lastly, Montanans for Healthy Rivers. Again, the podcast can be found on many and most major streaming platforms, and it's River Ramble Guides Edition podcast. And please, if you would like to learn more about the Montana Headwaters Legacy Act and the Crown of the Continent proposal, visit healthyriversmt.org, and please add your endorsement.
Go to thefebruaryroom.com, where you can access a complete library of our podcast and read more about our guests, their fishing stories, and favorite fly patterns. We're always looking for exceptional fly fishing yarns, and if you have one to spin, shoot us an email at info@thefebruaryroom.com. The February Room is always free, but if you feel like throwing a nickel in the pond, we appreciate any additional listener support. For companies and individuals interested in sponsorship opportunities, please contact us for our media kit. Thanks for stopping by the February Room, and we'll see you down here next week.